Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to come along and join you for this conference. And I want to begin by acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Also want to acknowledge Paydirt and Bill Repard for putting on this conference and allowing me to present and acknowledge that I understand that Madeleine King, the Federal Resources Minister, who I work very closely with, was able to present remotely yesterday, and I know that she's also shares the West Australian Government's view that we have a big future in battery minerals and critical materials. So I'm going to try and get through my slides as quickly as I can so that we can get to the Q&A before I have to leave, and I apologise that I'm on a deadline today. So look, we know that there's unprecedented demand around the world for critical minerals, and that's being driven by decarbonisation. So Western Australia is very fortunate having so many deposits of so many critical minerals here in Western Australia. And that includes being supplying half of all the world's lithium and being in the top 5 for nickel and cobalt, and rare earths, and with active industry here in Western Australia. And with very strong commodity prices, we've seen the lithium contribution to Western Australia's economy growing very rapidly over the last year. So we have a strategy, the Future Battery and Critical Minerals Industry Strategy, which we have been running now for 4 years. We started off that process in 2018. We launched the strategy in 2019, and we've been keeping to it over that period of time. We continue to adjust it as we learn more and we engage with industry as much as we can, but our plan is to add value to our raw materials here in Western Australia. And I'm pleased to say that we've been very successful. We now have got 2 operating lithium hydroxide plants. We've got a BHP Nickel West's nickel sulphate plant, and we have many other projects underway here in Western Australia, including projects in the precursor chemical space. So in 2021, BHP Nickel West started producing nickel sulphate. Their plant can produce 100,000 tonnes of nickel sulphate, enough to produce 700,000 electric vehicles, and they've got many important partners. Tianqi, Albemarle and SQM, with their Australian partners, are all either underway or under development. And we've seen lithium hydroxide now produced in Western Australia in 2 plants, making us an important contributor to the global supply of lithium hydroxide. So we'll have 10% of the global supply of lithium hydroxide by next year, and just on the existing investments, we'll have 20% of global supply by 2027. So, and we now know that there's significant interest in precursor cathode active material manufacturing here in Western Australia. And so we've also seen development in other materials. And I want to particularly draw attention to our position in rare earths. The Lynas plant is nearing completion in Kalgoorlie, a very important plant that will supply rare earths to Western industry. And of course the Iluka plant is now under construction at Eneabba, which will be an integrated plant, crack, leach, separate and finish rare earths. And of course there's Hastings Technology Metals and their fully funded project, which is still going through their engineering and design phase. But the point there is that within a very few years, Western Australia will be the number 2 supplier of rare earths to the globe, and the only significant supplier of Western supplier of rare earths. When you add that to our strength in battery materials, you can see that we're going to have a very important part to play in the West's development of new technologies. And that's on top of high purity alumina, graphite and other materials that we can see, the cobalt sulphate, all these projects that are underway here in Western Australia. And so we want to continue to grow that value chain. We acknowledge that success, but we know that's not enough, and so we are committed to supporting research and development. And through the Minerals Research Institute of Western Australia, we continue to support research and development through the FBI, the Future Battery Industry CRC, based here in Western Australia, $127 million research collaboration that's delivering new technologies to our industry. And that includes the precursor chemical pilot plant at Curtin University, where companies from around the world, including BASF, have come to test their projects. And this demonstrates that Western Australia is a viable location for precursor cathode active material manufacturing here in Western Australia. And with companies like Pure Battery Technologies and others who are looking to develop projects here in Western Australia, we are very excited about the opportunities for the future. And I also note that IGO has stated its ambitions to investigate PCAM, as well as Tianqi has done the same. So we're very excited with that, and I must say the reaction we had in both Korea and Japan to the opportunities here in Western Australia on my recent trip were quite remarkable. So we are, through our global invest and trade offices, and I acknowledge John Longalot here today as our Commissioner for Western Australia in London and Europe. We are working with international partners to promote investment into this sector. And on my trip to Korea, one of the highlights was the opportunity to witness the Minerals Research Institute of Western Australia signing a memorandum of understanding with the Korean Institute of Geoscience and Mineral Resources to investigate decarbonising the mining supply chain, and this will also support research and development into the precursor chemical industry that can benefit Western Australia. We're also very pleased to see the reaction to our approvals processes here in Western Australia, and I know that people always want us to act faster, but we do actually have a model for approvals of minerals projects here in Western Australia, but we're not resting on our laurels. We're investing $22.5 million into supporting a clearer pathway and providing additional resources for green energy projects, and that includes critical mineral projects. We're working closely together with the Australian Government to make sure that Western Australia remains an important destination for resources here in Western Australia, and I highlight the fact that we continue to support early stage exploration because we understand the link between supporting early stage exploration and a successful mining industry. So, having raced through the presentation, because I know that people get value out of Q&A, I want to thank everybody for their interest in this. This is an important opportunity for Western Australia to add value to our raw materials. We are on the cusp of something very exciting. I always say that the global decarbonisation pathway runs through Western Australia. We know that to decarbonise, the world needs more mining activity. It needs more chemical processing of minerals into products to go into batteries. And that provides a unique opportunity for here in Western Australia. And the West Australian Government is keen to partner with industry to make sure we take advantage of these opportunities. We're pleased that we've already had many successes, but we know we need to do more, and we're very much looking forward to working with investors to take advantage of this unique opportunity. Thank you all very much.
Should be on, hopefully.
I hope, yes it is.
Good. Thanks, Bill, that was really interesting. And I understand you've been on a bit of a whirlwind trip around the globe recently.
Yes.
So where did you go?
So we spent 3 days in Toronto at PDAC. So Mark Andrews in the front row, my advisor. We went to PDAC for 3 days. We then dropped in on Washington for 2 days, engaged particularly with people in the Congress. Then we flew to Korea, spent 3 days in Korea, flew on to Japan and spent 2 days in Tokyo before we came back. And I think we had 42 meetings, 47 meetings, 6 conferences and a range of other engagements.
So not much.
No, we were sightseeing.
And how was WA's critical minerals sector received, especially in Canada and the US, especially with the Inflation Reduction Act that was announced last year? So what was the sort of sentiment on WA and Australia, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that in the US people are only starting to understand what we do in Australia, and that was actually why we wanted to engage with we didn't engage directly with the congressmen, we engaged with their staff. So we were dealing with key senators and members of the House of Representatives who are critical, like the chairs of committees and those types of people. And we wanted to make sure the staff had a clear understanding of the opportunities in Western Australia and what we've done well and what we can do further. It's pretty obvious that no one actually understands exactly what the Inflation Reduction Act will impact, because there's this question about whether you can have any Chinese involvement in the project. So even an American company building an American plant in America, if it uses Chinese technology, it's not clear whether that's covered by the IRA, so it's going to be a little while before we understand. The good news is, of course, that Australia is a free trade agreement country, so our production is included as North American production, so that's obviously to our advantage, but it'll be a little while before it's completely clear of how we can interact with that legislation.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I know that those in the American department here are quite frustrated in some ways because it's difficult for mining companies too to know how to access capital in America. And there's, people want to invest in Australia. It's almost like there's a disconnect somewhat between getting the funds from there into here. And if someone pitches up on your doorstep and says, here's a bunch of money, it's easy for a mining company to accept that, isn't it? So I think there's a bit of work to be done there and making sure we're connecting properly.
Yeah, I think, look, I've met in 2019 when I did a trip to Europe that was similar to the one I've just done. I met with German car companies. This time I met with American car companies. I think there is an understanding that the vehicle companies need to secure the supply. And, we've seen that with some of the investments in both nickel and lithium here, and I think you'll see that increasingly occurring. We met with a number of lobby groups that have car manufacturers as part of their membership, and so there is an understanding of the need to source raw material as well as develop the chemical industry and the battery industry as well.
Yeah, that's right. And it's years ago, even 3 years ago, that's not how, now the OEMs are interacting and directly with mining companies, which is a new thing, basically. Yeah. And in Korea, you met with a lot of the big EV and battery folk there?
Yes, so both in Japan and Korea, we met with everybody that you could think of. We'll publish the list of names very soon, but it's actually on LinkedIn already. But you can see that we met with basically everybody that you could think of in the battery chemical industry in Korea, and a significant number in Japan as well. And the Koreans have a very advanced understanding of what they want to achieve. We'd like them to adjust their thinking a little bit, and I've met with them on a number of occasions now. The Japanese are very open to investing onshore in Western Australia, and we want to take up the opportunities that were laid out to us. We met with one particular Japanese company that had a bad experience in Indonesia, just as an example. So there's an understanding of this positive investment environment here in Western Australia that we've demonstrated through LNG, that we've demonstrated through iron ore, that the Japanese can see that they can take advantage of that stable environment to invest into the critical minerals and battery space.
That's fantastic. So a lot of exciting partnerships coming up, it sounds like. I'm getting the nod that you need to head off. No, that's all right. It's fine. You've got a day job, you've got places to be, it's all good. So can everyone please put their hands together for our Minister for Mines?